This afternoon, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Lisa Brodie, who's the head of school at the University of the West of England, and she's going to be talking to us about finding her inner engineer. Now, I have to admit, I've had a sneak peek of the presentation she's got as part of today's interview, and it is something pretty special, and I'm really, really excited to hear her story. As always, once that's been through, we'll then go into the question and answer session where you can ask your questions. Please, if you've got them as they're coming through, feel free to start popping them into the question and answer box that will be on screen. And without further ado, we'll say good afternoon, Lisa.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay there, primary engineer?
That is coming through perfectly. Yes, thank you very much. It's lovely to have you, and thank you for giving up your time this afternoon to share your story with us.
Oh, it's fantastic. And hello, all you future engineers out there. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to join you today and tell you a little bit about what I've learned along the way. And I've deliberately called this Finding My Inner Engineer because I've had lots of different jobs and I've changed my mind about what I wanted to do. But what I think I've learned is that there's so many different ways just to be an engineer. So I'm just going to try and share my screen with you now. And then if you wouldn't mind confirming that you can see it. It's thinking about it.
There we go. The screen is up and on display. That is beautiful.
That's brilliant. Okay, well, again, I'd just like to say it's great to virtually meet so many future engineers in the making, and I hope today you'll think about some different routes that you might want to take if you want to become an engineer. So I'm going to start with a little bit about me, and this is the formal stuff. So my job title is Professor, and what that means is that I have lots of good ideas that I like to share, and I'm particularly a professor of knowledge exchange. So I like to work with companies and people and help them to absorb the knowledge that we've got within the university. Now, I've got lots of letters there, don't worry about those. I deliberately put them up and I'll explain why in a moment. But my background is I spent 15 years as a professional engineer and I made curries, those curries that you get, you know, where you peel the lid off and you put them in your microwave. I've made showers that you get in the morning probably. I've made bricks and I've made hydraulic actuation systems. So I've got lots of different experiences of being an engineer, but always in manufacturing. So I'm a manufacturing engineer by background. And I also worked in the aerospace industry for a long time. But what do I do now? So at the moment, I am the head of school for engineering, and that's at a university. So it's kind of like a giant school, really. And we teach lots of different types of engineering. I put some of them up here. So we've got aerospace engineering, robotic engineering, and we also teach people that manage engineering companies too. So I've got lots of staff, about 150, and there's around 2,000 students. So if you imagine how big your class is, and then think how many we must have if we've got 2,000 students. So I'm a chartered engineer, and that's something that you apply for to show that you have met the standards of being a professional engineer. And lots of people like to do that. And as part of that, I also help support younger engineers that are coming through who want to become professional engineers, and that's part of my role too. I've also got some really interesting bits I do alongside. So there's a very special aerospace museum called Aerospace Bristol, and I'm a trustee for Aerospace Bristol. So I help them with telling the stories about the aerospace history for the region. And I also sit with lots of other people that do the same job as me. And we talk about the best way to teach engineering. But here's some interesting, because that's the boring bit. But look, here's the interesting, I think this is the interesting stuff. So this is all about me. So I've got 3 children, and they're big children now, but they're still children. And in our house, we have lots of neurodiverse talents. Now, what that means is between all of us in the family, we have the talent of autism. We also have ADHD. We have dyspraxia. And what else do we have? There's another one. Oh, hypermobility. We've also got that. Now, the reason I say that's a talent is because with those different things brings lots of different ways of thinking, lots of creativity, lots of innovation. So if there's any of you in the room today that have those special talents, you could be an engineer too. So I've got 2 dogs that you can see in the picture there. And the big brown one is called Bruno. He's a big German Shepherd. And the little collie at the bottom, she's called Marvel. And on the left-hand side, I've got my 2 cats who are called Bentley and Lola. And what do I like doing? Well, I like Marvel films. I particularly like Marvel films, you can see, because we've named one of our dogs Marvel. And I also like DC films. And those of you who know those kind of films will see old Captain America in the top corner. I love taking things apart to see how they work. So that's the engineer on the inside. So whenever I get anything new, I think, well, how did they do that? And my earliest memory is thinking about toothpaste tubes. Okay. So when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, I remember picking it up and thinking, how do they get that inside that tube? And more importantly, how do they get the different colors in there? So I've always been fascinated by how things work. I also like to organize things. So all my cupboards have everything organized in order, and I've even got a label maker. So if anything stands still in this house, it ends up with a label on it. Now, the reason I've told you all about that is because engineers are just people like you, like me, and like your parents. And I think you'll find the theme from this is anybody can be an engineer. So I thought I'd put some embarrassing photos of me up here, tell you a little bit about how I chose engineering. So in the top corner where there's the picture of the 4 children, there's a really embarrassing old photo of me, and that will tell you just how old I am. And then there's lots of photos from school and around the edge. And I think if I think back to school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did know what I liked doing. And I loved maths and I loved science. I loved art, but I wasn't very good at it. I'm not a very good drawer, and I didn't really enjoy doing languages, and I didn't really enjoy doing English, but I still did them because you need them. But I really did especially love maths and science. And when I came through school, I did A-levels. I didn't do very well at my A-levels. I did do maths, but I didn't do physics. And so what that gave me was an opportunity to move into engineering. I didn't, as I said, get the grades that I wanted, but I did manage to get onto a manufacturing engineering course. And then I later did 2 other courses, so higher courses, also in the engineering area. But what I learned from that is it doesn't actually matter if things don't always go your way and you don't necessarily get the grades that you wanted, because there's always a new opportunity ahead. So not getting the grades that I thought I would get at A-level meant that I tried extra hard when I went on to the next level. And then I jumped onto some different engineering careers. So the first job I had was at a place called Tiffany Sharwood's, and that's where we made the curries. And I was a manufacturing engineer. And so my job was to work with the team on the production line to make sure that the curries were made to the right quality and that they were made in a timely way and to the right cost. And I did enjoy that job, but I very quickly moved on to another type of manufacturing, which made what we call white goods equipment. So things like showers, like you have in your bathroom, and water heaters. And that was at a place called IMI Water Heating. Now, I did really enjoy that job, but while I was doing it, I thought, is there anything else I could do in engineering? So I did a bit of studying alongside and decided I really liked to be an engineer that bought things. I do like buying. I buy lots of stuff. So I moved into a buying environment as an engineer. So what I did was I was the person that bought the bits that go into the equipment. And then my final job was working at a company that made aerospace parts. So I was also in buying there, and we made equipment that's used on aircraft and on helicopters. And I moved through those jobs, and I wasn't really sure if these were for me. I wasn't really sure if I'd found my proper home, because I wasn't really happy. And I realized that when you're working really, really hard, but you're not really happy, then it can be quite stressful. And actually, what I really wanted to do was follow the things that I loved doing. So then I got my next job. And this was at a place called Industry Forum. And this was my best job, the job that I enjoyed the most. And in that job, I used to work with people that were in the manufacturing plant, and they worked on the shop floor. And my job was to work with them and help them do their job better. So I used to do some bits of training and bits of teaching, but my role was to make their job more enjoyable, to make their job easier, and to make work just generally better for them. And I realized this is my passion. This is what I like doing. I liked helping people. I liked improving things, and I liked making things better. And that's just an engineer. But then I went and had my three lovely children, my three lovely big children, and I realized that I wanted to change my career. And I wanted to use all the engineering I'd learned, but I wanted to focus on the teaching side of it. So how could I help people become engineers? And to do that, I needed to do something quite, which seems like a long way off, but it comes around really quick, which is do something called a PhD. And that's what gives me the title doctor originally. And then now my latest title is professor. But to do a PhD, it's just a really, really big research project. And I looked at an engineering problem as part of my research. And during that, that was when I decided to have my youngest daughter. And then they don't look like that. I've put those pictures there. That's not my children, but they did once look like that. So when I finished my PhD, I developed something that I've put in here that's called Imposter Syndrome. And that's where I suddenly thought, oh, I've got this title of doctor. I don't know if I'm not sure I'm really good enough to do this. I was really worried that there's all these people that had the title doctor, and now I had it, but was I really good enough? And the reason I'm sharing that with you is it's natural to worry that you aren't you don't have the skills, or you aren't the right person to do these things, but you absolutely are. And even when I was putting this presentation together today, I looked at all the other fabulous engineers that you've spoken to, and I thought, oh gosh, they're proper engineers. So that's my little secret. Don't tell anybody, but I still feel a bit like that today sometimes. But what I've learned from that is, do you know what? It's okay not to know the answers to everything. The important thing is to just be curious and keep trying. And if you're doing something that doesn't really work, then just change it and try something else. You know, you don't have to stay stuck in something if it's not really what you want to do. So here I am today. This is me. I am working at a university. But even here, I had lots of different jobs. So I started as something called a research associate. And in that job, I was helping other people support them in their research. Again, still using my engineering skills. And then I moved into a role as a teacher, or a lecturer, as we call it at university. And I really, really enjoyed helping young people learn the engineering skills they needed. And I had a bit of a kind of wake-up call, because I realized I don't really like the research, because that meant I had to sit behind a computer on my own and concentrate really, really hard. And that probably wasn't where I wanted to be. So I decided, right, that's it. I'm going to really pursue this, the teaching side of it. And then I moved into lots of different jobs until I got this job that I have today, where I'm the head of school. Now, it's a bit like a head teacher, head of school. You're kind of responsible for lots of things. And one of the brilliant projects that I've been involved in was building this beautiful building. So this is our School of Engineering. And I've been involved in that for the last, I think it's maybe 5 or 6 years, right from when we were just thinking about what it could look like. And so as an engineer, I worked with the architects and we thought about what was the best way for our future students to learn how to be engineers. We came up with this fantastic building. The other special part of my job is I'm really lucky because when our young engineers graduate, I'm that person that stands on the stage and I get to call out their name and I give them their certificate. And that is one of the most special parts of my job. I also get to play with lots of toys, really expensive toys. So in our department, we've got lots of robots and lots of robotic equipment. We also have special technology that allows you to put on a headset and see the world in a different way. So that's a virtual reality equipment. But we also get to do things like I'm doing today, which is about inspiring others. And I've just put some pictures up there. And I was going to tell you a little bit about some of the products that we've created to help young people think about how they might become an engineer. So we created a very special pack of cards that is a bit like Top Trumps. So if any of you have played Top Trumps, and it talks about different types of engineer. And it's a very special pack of cards because there's more women than men in the pack of cards because we need more female engineers, girls out there. And there's lots of neurodiversity in the pack. So we've got people with different skills, and there's also people from different backgrounds, because actually what engineering needs is it needs lots of different types of minds applied to the problem. We also created a dome that you climb inside, and there's a show where you can learn about how engineers can solve the world's problems. We created something really exciting. So those of you that play Minecraft, I play it too. We created the West of England, which is where I live, in the Minecraft world, and we take it into schools, and the schools get to build solutions to to challenges like how do we reduce the carbon in the world and how do we make a better future. And we also created a pack that schools that can have, and you get to become citizens of science. So this has got a special pack of sensors in it, and you can do things like count traffic, and you can help us change the world for the better. So in summary, what do I think I've learned so far? Well, definitely there is no only one way to be an engineer, because I've shown that from all the different experiences I've had. I also learned that it's really important to try lots of different things. But you know what? Find the thing that you love and do more of that, because if you can find the thing that makes you happy, you will really enjoy your career. And don't let anybody put you off. If it's what you want to do, you know, you're going to be able to do it, because I've got confidence in you. And try to take every chance that comes your way. So if you get the chance to try something new, give it a go. You just don't know whether that might be your special skill. And don't miss out just because it feels like it might be difficult, because things are difficult, but do you know what? You can do them and the rewards are brilliant. And I think don't take no for an answer. So if somebody says to you that you can't do something, you should keep going, because do you know what? You are amazing and you are all capable of anything. And that's all from me today. I'm wondering if you've got any questions for me.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. We've certainly started to get some questions going in, and I'm especially intrigued about that bandana on Bruno as well. That Captain America bandana looked amazing, and really that actually links to the first question which we've had come in, which we'll come to in a second. But obviously, if you've got any questions that you would like to ask Lisa, the floor is now open to you. So please get your questions into the Q&A, and I will start working our way through them. So the first question we've got is if you could compare yourself to any Marvel character, who would you be?
Oh, that's so tricky. That is so tricky. Oh gosh, what a good question. Oh, I'd like to be Iron Man. I think I'm Iron Man. I'm Iron Man.
Iron
Super,
Man.
super techie, super special. He's a super special engineer.
See, I'd pick Scarlet Witch. I'm completely on there with Scarlet Witch on there. And the next question that we've got is around your favorite research project. What's been the favorite project that you've done, and why?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a very good question. Well, my PhD was probably the biggest project I did, and that was quite that was a really interesting one. It took me a long time. It took me quite a few years, and with that, so I'm just going to move my camera across a moment because I realise I'm looking in a different direction, and that was very special. It looked at how you bring new technology onto aircraft. So those aeroplanes you go up in, some of you for your holiday, I got to look at all the new technologies that were coming in, and more importantly, I got to talk to all the people that make them. So I got to talk to lots of different types of engineer, which was really interesting for me because engineers are all different. So I got to talk about the people who came up with the ideas, that were really thinking of the really wacky and radical ideas. And then I also talked to the manufacturing engineers who went, oh, there's no way we can make it that way. Where have they come up with that idea? All the way to the people who do the servicing of the aircraft, who have to look after the aircraft when it's being used. So yeah, I think probably that was my biggest and most interesting piece of research.
Brilliant, thank you. All the questions are starting to come in thick and fast now in both the chat and the Q&A, so I will alternate between the two of them. So I'm going to jump across to the chat now, and we've got a couple of questions which I'm going to put together. So the first one is it hard to invent things? And the second part is that if you were to invent something yourself, what would it be?
Oh, okay. Is it hard to invent things? No, I think coming up with ideas is really easy. I think the difficult thing is it is then in actually making them. I think that can be more difficult. So I wouldn't want anybody to be put off to think they couldn't invent things, because coming up with creative ideas is we can all do that, because I bet you all have ideas some days where you're doing something you think, this is silly. Wouldn't it be easier if? That's just an engineering mindset. So if I could invent something, I think I might have a time machine. You know, I would love to go back in time and forward in time and see what was happening. So if I could invent something, I think a time machine. Wouldn't that be a good idea?
I love that idea. That would be fantastic. Certainly think of a few places we'd like to go and maybe see what things were like at that point in time. So again, two more questions which I'm going to put together. So what was your hardest job? And the question sort of said, what job has been your favorite one? But I know you sort of touched on that in your presentation. So maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more on that job and why it was your favorite one.
Do you want me to talk about my hardest? I think probably my hardest was the one that I didn't enjoy. Yeah. So all of them, you could, any job that you do, you've probably got the skill to do it. The important thing is like really enjoying what you do. And I think I found the hardest job was a job that I felt I was going to work and I was working really hard, but I probably wasn't feeling very happy. The job I've enjoyed the most is the one I've got at the moment. I love going out and doing the outreach activity that helps people see that they can be an engineer, and all those really great activities that I showed you, the team that work with me have developed. It's such a pleasure to see young people go, oh, I didn't realize that was an engineer. So for me, that's the best job I've had, because we need engineers. The future needs engineers, because we're the answers to solving the problems that the world has got. So it's my job now as an engineer to make more engineers.
So I think that's brilliant. I think that kind of answers the next question. But again, I'm going to put two questions together from Corpus Christi Primary and from Miss Hunter. So The question, the first question from Corpus Christi is whether or not you like being an engineer. And then Miss Hunter sort of has added the extra bit that I'm going to put on from her class. So what is the hardest part of being an engineer?
Oh, so what you're gonna have to. I listened to the second one. I forgot the first one. What was the first one?
Corpus Christi have asked about, do you like being an engineer?
I love being an engineer. I really apologise if you could you hear that barking? I'm very sorry. My big dog has decided it's a good time to get involved in the webinar. So if it gets too much, I will go out and sort it out. But so let me know if it's too loud. I love being an engineer. I chose it because my dad was an engineer. So when I was growing up, my dad worked in a factory, lots of factories. One of them was one where it was a meat factory, like sliced meats, and there was another one that was an egg factory where you collect eggs. But my dad was the engineer that used to fix things, so I used to go in on a Saturday, and because my mum was working as well, and I used to sit in his office, and I can still remember spinning around in his office chair, and I can smell it. I can smell the oil just as I'm saying it. And he used to let me come out on the line and watch what he was fixing. And I think I probably drove him mad because I would say, "Well, what's that in there?" And hands were in everything. But for me, it was fascinating to see, because for me it's all about how things are made and how they go together, and I need to see that. My brain thinks in pictures, so I need to unpick it and think, how does this all work? So going right back to those days when I used to be there with my dad in his factory, I always thought I would be in this kind of area. So yeah, I absolutely love being an engineer. What was this follow-on question? What's the bit I don't like, or the challenging bit?
The hardest part of being an engineer from Miss Hunter's class.
The hardest bit about being an engineer. Probably having to stay on top of all the new things that come along, because there's new technology and new things to know all the time, and trying to stay up with all the latest technologies and things is quite difficult, because everything moves so fast these days. I even have to go and ask my children sometimes how to do things on my phone, because they're introducing new apps and it's all going so quickly. So probably the most challenging thing is trying to always stay with the latest technology, just because it's moving so fast, not because it's difficult, but there's just so much to do.
Brilliant. The next question we've got is around university. And did you need to go to university?
To be an engineer or to be where I am, they're two separate things, I think. So let me answer them two ways, if that's okay, to make sure I answer the question properly. So to be an engineer, no, you don't have to go to university. There's so many opportunities for young people. There's lots of different routes in, with apprenticeships and working with on day release from your job to become an engineer. So you don't have to go to university to be an engineer. You can choose to. I went down that path because in the olden days, that's what you did. You went from school straight into university. But my family, who are at that age, they're not necessarily going straight to university. They're going to go and work and find their career a different way. So you don't have to go to university to be an engineer. In fact, you get lots of practical skills just by going and working in a company and learning them hands-on. Because to me, an engineer lots of it is about being hands-on and actually doing the role. You can't just learn it from a book. So I think practical skills are really, really important.
Brilliant, thank you. And the next question, I'm going to add a little bit onto this one. So the next question would like to know, where did you get the idea for the Top Trumps game for engineers from? And the bit I'm going to add on is, if we've got any schools watching today who want to get hold of some of these cards, how do they go about doing that?
Oh, right. Great. That's a great question. So the Top Trumps we worked with a company that had started to make some cards, but not for engineering. They were for something else. And do you know what? I bumped into somebody and had a coffee. And this is what I say about you know, take every opportunity because you don't know where it might lead. And I was chatting to this lady and she told me about this thing she had, and she showed me when. I went, oh, I love that. I wonder if we could do it for engineering. And then this product was developed. So it comes with a lesson plan, teachers, you'll be pleased to know. So all of our products are built with a lesson plan that you can run in class, and they're all freely available. So we have actual physical card sets that you can access, and I will make those available to primary engineer after. We'll send you the links for all of these activities that I showcased. And you can download the lesson plan, you can access the materials. The really good bit that comes with those top trumps that I forgot to mention was they are real people. So these are real engineers in the west of England, and we delivered them over the last 2 years when it was all a bit different. We were all trying to get used to online learning, and they've made TikTok videos to go with them. So every engineer has a little TikTok video with them showing what it's like to be an engineer. So yeah, there's some really good ones in there. Some engineers were more comfortable doing it than others, as you can imagine. But yeah, we'll make those available afterwards.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I can't wait to share those and to see them for ourselves. That'd be fantastic. So the next questions, again, I'm going to put two together because you've sort of already answered the one about how you become an engineer. So the sort of the follow on to that, I suppose, would be how long does it take to become an engineer?
Well, there's lots of different types of engineering role, and it does depend a little bit on what type of engineer you want to be. So some people like to be very, very hands-on. So they might choose to go and work in a company and go to college at the same time. And that sometimes takes 2 to 3 years to become that type of engineer. If you wanted to be a research engineer, for example, that takes a bit longer because you have to do the thing I talked about that was a PhD generally, and that's how you learn to be a researcher, and then you get your research published and you become very famous for being that kind of researcher. So it really depends on what kind of engineer you want to be. But my advice would be, as you can see from what I've done, just try something. You never know if you might like it.
Brilliant. And then the next question that's come through is, what job that you do and that's involved in what you're with at the moment, what job do you want to get better at?
Oh, to get better at. Do you know what? You can always get better, can't you? You can always improve. So that's why I deliberately put I'm learning along the way. What would I like to get better at? I think I'd like to do a bit more teaching. Not doing as much teaching as I used to do. I used to love doing the activities and kind of getting hands-on. And the more that I've moved in the career that I'm moving, I probably do less of that, but it's the bit that I love. There isn't. I don't think I'm really answering the question here, but you just reminded me of something I really love. So there's a particular activity that we do where you go into an area and you tidy it up. It's called 5S, right? It's a very Japanese thing, and it's about organizing the workplace, and it's making sure that near the machines you've got all the tools you need, you've got everything ready to start the job. And because I love organizing things and I've got a label maker, and because I love taking things apart, that's right up my street. So I'd love to do more of that, and we do some in our department, and I'm always trying to get involved in it. So that's what I'd like to do more of. I've got to answer the question for you. What would I like to get better at? I think I'd like to learn more about digital technology. So I don't know, because I'm a manufacturing engineer, I don't know as much about using VR, virtual reality, and augmented reality, you know, those kind of headsets you wear. And I think I'd like to know more about that, because I do rely on other people to do it for me. So if there was anything I could get better at, I think some of these new technologies I could probably do with a little bit of a refresher on those.
Brilliant. Now, I've got a nice easy one for you coming next. So, is being an engineer fun?
Oh gosh, yeah. I hope it's come across that I find it fun anyway. And I think the best bit is you get to do so many different things and meet so many different people. So you there's so many skills involved in it as well, and it's kind of really up to you what type of engineer you want to be. You know, so some days you could be like, if I think about, let me think about what I did yesterday. So I'm working with people from other companies, finding out what engineering problems that they've got. And then the next minute I'm solving a problem in my own building where something has gone wrong. And I'm thinking, how do we fix that? So it's the variety, I think. Yeah, so it is definitely, and it's as much fun as you make it.
I love that. This next one, this is an interesting one, I think. So, has anything bad ever happened with one of your jobs?
Ooh. This is being recorded. I can't. Let me think. Has anything bad ever happened with one of your jobs? I can think of some bad things that happened in the job that maybe I wasn't directly responsible for. So I remember back in the remember I said I made curries in that there was a factory that made curries, and I do remember one particular day. So our job was to look at how we can make the line more efficient. So how do you make more good quality products come out of the line? And then there was one particular day where the line broke, and the whole business is based on how many you can make, and we made absolutely nothing. And then we discovered there was a quality problem. So there was a few days where nothing was happening, and the poor engineering manager was under them. Everybody was like under machines. And I can remember that because that was quite early. That was when I was a new engineer. And so it felt like quite a big thing to me that, you know, this whole business had stopped. But it genuinely wasn't something I did, but it was quite a bad day for the company. So I think that's the kind, but if I flip that on its head, the thing I learned was how good a team I worked with, because everybody was in there trying to solve that problem. So all good things can be bad things too, I think.
I like that. Brilliant. It's one of those where you sort of like, what is it okay to say when it's being recorded?
Yeah. How many bad things should I list? You know.
So the next, again, I'm going to put two questions together now. So this is around. So we spoke about inventing things. So again, another question from Miss Hunter's class is: do you find it hard to come up with ideas? And the follow-on is around when you get something wrong, what motivates you to keep going?
Okay. Okay, so are ideas hard to come up with? I think some people are really good at it. So like my particular skill isn't in coming up with like new products. I don't think my brain thinks like that. So everybody's brain thinks differently. And mine, it doesn't come up with brand new products that are going to solve things. So, you know, the first person that came up with a mobile phone that you can get your email on, I mean, that's amazing. But the way that my mind works is I'm a problem solver. So I'm always looking for how to make something better or make something go quicker. So those ideas come easy to me. But if you put me in a room and said you want me to design a brand new bicycle, probably that's not, I'm not the right person for that job. But if there was a problem in a building or in a company that they needed to work out how to solve it, that's the thing that I'm good at. So we're all good at different things. And the second question was something about if I got something wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, so no, it's fine. It's when you get things wrong, what motivates you to keep going?
So I see when things go wrong, unless they're really, really bad, I'd always see them as an opportunity to learn something and do something better, because I'm a problem solver. If something goes wrong, I'm thinking, okay, so what can I do differently? And so even when I didn't do very well at school in some of my grades, I thought, okay, so that didn't work out as I planned. What about if I look over here now? And I just took a different path. So for me, I'm always looking for different ways to do stuff and to solve problems. So I probably just applied that to the situation that's gone wrong. I'm also quite a positive, quite optimistic. I'm always looking for the bright side of any situation and kind of going, yeah, that went wrong, but look what we can do with it. So I think it's quite good to stay positive about things, because every time something goes wrong, there's always an opportunity to do something better, I think.
Brilliant. I completely agree. Stop seeing things as things that have gone wrong, and instead they become opportunities to make it better.
Things always go wrong, you know. I don't want to, it's a little secret I'll let you into. Things are always going wrong, but that's life, isn't it? You know, and every time something goes wrong, just think how better it could be if you solve that problem and it doesn't come back. So
brilliant. And again, these two kind of loop in together. So what would you say has been the highlight of your career so far, and what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
The highlight, I think, probably the highlight would probably be my PhD, because on that day my name changed from Mrs. to Doctor, which was really weird because I never thought I never thought I'd be a doctor. And it was a big achievement because it was quite a difficult time, and my children were really little, and there was many days where I would sit in a ball pit with the kids. I'd be on my laptop, and so I think it was an achievement because it's only you that does it. You've got to keep going, and it took me quite a long time. So probably that felt like my biggest achievement, I think, mainly because it was all on me. Memory's terrible. All my neurodiversity is coming out. My short-term memory is not great. You're going to have to refresh me. Sorry.
It was the other part of it was around the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome.
Biggest challenge. Oh gosh, there's been quite a lot of challenges actually. I think it was quite a challenge at the beginning, being one of only a few female students on an engineering course, because it's improving, but originally I was just one of only a few girls that had chosen to do engineering, so that was quite challenging. And then also going into companies where you are one of only a few female engineers, that was quite difficult, just because you felt like you were a little bit on your own. But that's changing, and there's a lot more women out in engineering careers, so those felt quite challenging. And also just juggling everything because life's busy, so that is quite challenging on having quite a big job. And I do feel responsible for all the student engineers that come through our engineering department. I want every single one of them to be the very best engineer they can be. So I do feel a lot of responsibility for that. But again, flipping when things are going wrong on their head, I'm always looking for ways to make that experience better for those engineers. So every time we discover there's something that we could do better, we have a little team that go and make it better.
Brilliant, thank you. So just two questions that I can see left in the chat, and they're two nice questions to finish off with as well, I think. So the first one's linked to you inventing the time machine. So if you completed your invention and built the time machine, would you change anything from the past?
Oh God, that's an amazing question. You're going to be whoever gave that question, that's an engineer in the making, that is. Right, so if I could change anything from the past, I would like to go back and see some of the things from the past. I'd love to see dinosaurs. I mean, I love Jurassic World. You can tell I'm a bit of a filmy, can't you? Because I love that. The thought of being in one of those glass things and going around the dinosaurs. I think if I could change anything, it would be to kind of intervene at the point when things like that were becoming extinct, and apply an engineering solution to that problem. Because just think, if I could have a pet, I'd have my 2 dogs, my 2 cats, and my velociraptor, wouldn't I? If they hadn't become extinct. So if I could go back in time, I think, because I love animals, I'd go back and I'd find ways that these creatures were still with us, because I think they're fascinating.
Brilliant. And then the final question to end today's live Q&A with is around what words of inspiration would you have, or do you have, for the schools and the pupils who are watching today, or who are maybe watching this after we've recorded? What message do you want to share with them, and what things do you want to leave them thinking about at the end of the interview?
It's a long time ago for me, but I can remember being at primary school and secondary school and thinking that anything was possible. You know, you've got so many ideas. I would say hold on to those, because those are the ideas we need. You know, this is the future of engineering. All those great ideas you've got, we want them. So hold on to them, don't lose them, and take them into the world of engineering, and get involved in as many of these types of engineering project that like primary engineer run as you can, because you know you'll discover it's a really, really exciting and fun career, and it's so varied. You know, I've shown that, you know, I started as an engineer and I've just taken those skills, but I've just applied them in different ways. So I think my words of wisdom would be hold on to those ideas you've got, because you know anything is possible and you can help us make it possible.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that is absolutely the perfect bit to end on. Thank you to everybody who's joined us this afternoon. As you'll know, there are 2 weeks left to make sure you get your entries into us. They are flying into the office now, thick and fast. And we've actually sent the first batch out to be graded by engineers. So your ideas are already starting to be seen and looked at. And you never know, you might be one of the distinction or shortlisted entries that will go to our judging panels, where the likes of Lisa will be joining us to take part in that. Make sure you join us again on Friday. So at 10:30 a.m. on Friday morning, we've got our first dual language interview. So that will be in Welsh and in English, and hosted by myself as well. And that's going to be a lot of fun. That's with partnership with the RAF. And then on Friday afternoon, at the start of British Science Week, we've got Cameron Williamson, who is a vertical farmer up in Dundee, who'll be sharing his story as to what he does to try and solve some of the problems that we face in terms of our future food supply. But for today, thank you very much, Lisa, for giving up your time, for joining us, and for answering the questions and sharing your journey. It's been fantastic to hear that. And I know, looking at the chat and listening to some of the questions that have come in, you've definitely inspired a few more engineers to take on to tomorrow. So thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all on Friday.